Carbohydrates are an important molecule providing energy to living organisms. You most likely have come across these terms in foods such as breads, fruits, and rice, which are rich in carbohydrates. But what exactly are they? In this video, we will go in depth with its structure and functions. To start, all carbohydrates are composed of three elements: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. This can be expressed in the general formula as shown here, where x and y are equal. There are two main types: monosaccharides, a single molecule, and polysaccharides, which are polymers of the monosaccharide unit. Monosaccharides are readily soluble in water and are the main substrates for respiration, releasing energy for cell processes. It acts as a precursor for a large number of metabolic reactions, including synthesis of other molecules such as fats, nucleic acids, and amino acids. Some examples include glucose and galactose, which are also examples of hexose monosaccharides, and fructose, a type of pentose sugar. A polysaccharide is an insoluble storage form of carbohydrate. In animals, glycogen is used for storage of carbs in the liver and muscles. In plants, starch are energy reserves broken down into monosaccharides, which are then oxidized in respiration to release energy. Lastly, cellulose is a polysaccharide in plants made up of glucose, and they are important in the structural support of plant walls. Next, moving on to the structure of carbohydrates. To give a general overview of monosaccharides, they are composed of 3 to 6 carbons as its backbone, several hydroxyl groups, and either an aldose functional group or a ketone functional group. Firstly, as shown in this chart, monosaccharides can be further distinguished by the number of carbons. For example, glucose will be categorized as a hexose sugar as it contains 6 carbons, and sucrose is categorized as a pentose sugar with 5 carbons. Next, hydroxyl groups allow monosaccharides to dissolve in water because hydroxides are polar. As a refresher, oxygen is more electronegative, so it will be negative on the oxygen end and positive on the hydrogen end. Since like dissolves like, the polar monosaccharides are soluble in polar water. Lastly, there are two functional groups known as aldehyde and ketone functional groups. Glucose is an example of an aldose sugar because it contains the aldehyde functional group, while fructose is an example of a keto sugar, again because it contains a ketone functional group. In aqueous solutions, the straight-chain forms of the sugar undergo an internal reaction, also known as cyclization, to form a ring structure known as hemiacetose or hemiketose. It is important to note that the molecular formula remains the same, as only the bonds are rearranged. This is known as an isomer. Now, to represent the cyclic structure of monosaccharides, the Haworth projection formula is often utilized. The letter C to represent carbon is omitted, and the edge of the ring nearest to the reader is bolded. However, the Haworth projection is not an accurate representation of the actual shape of carbohydrates or bond angles. The chair and boat formations are the actual most stable conformations. Disaccharides are composed of two monosaccharides linked together in a condensation reaction. The reaction releases water when a hydroxyl group from each sugar reacts. The resulting bond is called a glycosidic linkage. Disaccharides are all soluble molecules that can be hydrolyzed into two monosaccharides by acid hydrolysis or enzyme catalyzed reactions. Some common examples include sucrose, a disaccharide made of 1 glucose and 1 fructose, lactose, which is composed of a galactose and a glucose, and maltose, which is made up of 2 glucose molecules. Finally, polysaccharides are polymers of monosaccharides. Due to their large size, they are mostly insoluble in water. The 3 most common polysaccharides are listed here, and they are all polymers of glucose. Starch is a means of storing energy in the form of glucose in plants. Starch is helical in structure, may contain branches, and are soluble in water. Glycogen, being more branched than starch, is relatively insoluble and is used for long-term energy storage in animals. Both starch and glycogen can be hydrolyzed by enzymes in the human body, but humans have no enzymes that are able to digest cellulose, which brings us to our final example. Cellulose is a linear and flat chain of glucose that forms rigid fibers of the plant's cell walls. They have strong intermolecular forces between the chains, meaning that they are very insoluble and dense. And with that, it brings us to the end of topic B5, which is carbohydrates. Thank you for watching this video and good luck on your exams.